My hands were clammy, a cold sweat I couldn't explain. I never expected a single sentence at a routine ultrasound to become the wedge that split our lives in half. It was a secret, hidden inside my wife, and it was about to change everything. This is the story of our marriage, a story that was shattered by a lie. A lie so big, it ripped us apart. The air in the clinic was sterile, a chemical scent that clung to my clothes and hair. We had gone to countless appointments before, but this one felt different. This was our last one, the final checkup before our baby was born. I watched my wife, Vera, as she lay on the examination table, her hand in mine, her belly a gentle mountain beneath the thin paper sheet. She was a vision of maternal grace, a canvas of our shared love. For 9 months, we had planned and dreamed, painting a perfect future in our minds. A family, a house, a dog, all the things we had worked so hard for. My eyes drifted to the monitor, a grainy, grayscale image of a life we had created. I saw the faint outline of a head, a tiny hand, and the rapid, rhythmic pulsing of a heart. It was a perfect, tiny miracle, and I felt a surge of love so powerful it took my breath away. I squeezed Vera's hand, and she squeezed back, her eyes shining with tears. The silence in the room was thick and heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the ultrasound machine and the steady thump-thump-thump of the baby's heartbeat. The doctor, a kind-faced woman with a gentle smile, moved the probe across Vera's belly, her eyes fixed on the screen. She hummed softly to herself, a little tune I couldn't quite make out. It was a peaceful moment, a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. A moment I would later come to hate. She finally put the probe down and turned to us, her smile fading. She looked at the monitor, then at us, her gaze lingering on me for a moment. Her expression was unreadable, a blank slate that told me nothing and everything all at once. My heart began to pound, a frantic drum against my ribs. Something was wrong. I knew it in my gut, a cold, sinking feeling that made my blood run cold. "Everything looks perfect," she said, her voice soft and even. "The baby is healthy and strong." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, a wave of relief washing over me. Vera's grip on my hand loosened, and I saw her shoulders drop, her body relaxing. We smiled at each other, a silent acknowledgement of our shared relief. We were safe. Our baby was safe. But the doctor didn't stop there. She looked at us again, her eyes filled with a strange, somber mixture of sympathy and confusion. She paused, as if gathering her thoughts, and then she said something that shattered our perfect world, her words a hammer blow to my heart, a sentence that twisted every memory, every shared moment, every promise into a lie. Her name was Vera. We met in a quiet cafe on a rainy Tuesday, a cliché I never thought would apply to my life. I was buried in a book, and she was sketching in a notebook, completely lost in her own world. I spilled my coffee, a clumsy gesture that ended up being the best thing to ever happen to me. Our hands touched as we both reached for the napkins, and her laugh filled the small space, a sound as warm as the steam rising from my cup. It was a slow-burn romance, built on late-night conversations and shared dreams. I was a planner, a man who lived by a checklist. She was a free spirit, a whirlwind of creative chaos. I'd be at my desk, meticulously balancing the budget, and she'd come in, her hair a mess of curls, and drag me out to see a sunset, or to dance in the kitchen to old records. We were a study in contrasts, but our differences were what drew us together. I was the anchor, and she was the wind, and we found a rhythm that worked. I trusted her completely. My belief in her was a cornerstone of my life, as fundamental as the ground beneath my feet. When we decided to start a family, it wasn't a sudden whim. It was a shared, thoughtful choice, a new chapter we were both excited to write. The pressures were real, though. My parents, traditional and unyielding, had very clear expectations for what our family should look like. And my job, while stable, required long hours, leaving a lot of the domestic work to Vera. She never complained. She took on the burden with a grace that amazed me. I saw her as my partner in every sense of the word, a woman who had my back no matter what, and I hers. That's why the doctor's words hit me so hard. They didn't just question the pregnancy. They questioned the very foundation of our relationship, the trust that had been the bedrock of our lives. My mind raced back, searching for a sign, anything I might have missed. I replayed every conversation, every look, every small moment. I saw nothing. There was nothing to see. The world I had built with her was solid. Or so I thought. We drove home in silence, a different kind of silence than the one in the clinic. This one was tense, heavy with 1,000 unasked questions. I kept my hand on her knee, a gesture of comfort that felt hollow. We were a couple in a car, but we felt 1,000,000 miles apart. She was staring out the window, her face a blank mask. As we pulled into the driveway, she turned to me, and I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, a fleeting emotion I couldn't name. And then, as she stepped out of the car, I saw it, a small, dark smudge on the sleeve of her coat. A mark from something I knew she hadn't been wearing when we left the house. The clinic waiting room was a sea of nervous anticipation. Pregnant women with glowing smiles, husbands with magazines they weren't reading. We were just another couple in that room, indistinguishable from the others. When our name was called, we followed a technician down a long hallway, the scent of antiseptic stronger now. She was a young woman, all business and efficiency, and she led us to a small, dim room. The ultrasound machine hummed quietly in the corner, a promise of a glimpse into our future. She had us wait for a few moments, just us and the ghostly image on the screen, a swirling nebula of black and gray. And then the doctor came in, her smile a warm contrast to the cold room. She began the scan, moving the wand across Vera's belly, her eyes fixed on the screen. The baby's heartbeat filled the room, a rhythmic sound that was both comforting and terrifying. She stopped moving the wand, and the room went silent. She looked at the screen, then at Vera, then at me. "Everything looks perfect," she said, her voice a calm, steady stream. "The baby is healthy and strong." I felt the tension drain from my shoulders. Relief. Pure, unadulterated relief. But then she spoke again, her voice softer this time, a gentle whisper that held a strange note of confusion. She turned the screen toward us, pointing to a small, dark shadow on the edge of the image. "It's just that," she began, her brow furrowed. "Based on the measurements and the fetal heart rate, the due date you were given seems to be off. By about 3 weeks. My blood ran cold. The silence that followed her words was a living thing, a predator in the room. I felt my heart seize, a sharp, painful jolt in my chest. 3 weeks. I replayed the calendar in my head, the moments, the dates. The time didn't add up. It couldn't. My mind spun, a frantic search for an explanation. A simple mistake? A miscalculation? I looked at Vera, ready to see the same shock reflected in her eyes, the same confusion. But her face was a blank canvas. There was no surprise, no panic. Instead, I saw a flicker of something else, something I couldn't quite place. It was a fleeting, almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of her mouth. A half-smile. A quiet, knowing silence that didn't fit the moment, a silence that screamed louder than any words could have. The drive home was a fog of unanswered questions. I tried to talk, but every question I asked was met with a wall of silence or a deflected answer. "What do you think she meant by that?" I asked, my voice tight with a tension I couldn't hide. Vera just stared out the window, her hands clasped in her lap. "She probably just miscalculated," she said, her voice flat. "It happens all the time." But I couldn't shake the image of her face, the way her lips had twitched, a silent, knowing reaction. It felt like a lie. Every passing minute in the car felt like a countdown to something I couldn't name. My unease grew with every mile, a knot tightening in my stomach. I kept replaying her words in my head, a rhythmic, maddening echo. "It happens all the time. It happens all the time." When we got home, she went straight to her phone, her back to me. She was typing furiously, her thumbs flying across the screen. I saw a flash of a name on the screen before she quickly hid it. A name I didn't recognize. The rhythm of my heart changed, a frantic, uneven beat. I tried to push the thoughts away, to convince myself I was overreacting. After all, the baby was healthy. That's all that mattered, right? I tried to calm myself, to breathe, but the air felt thin and suffocating. Later that night, I noticed another change. The ringtone on her phone was different. It used to be a generic melody, but now it was a custom tone, a specific, unfamiliar tune that made my stomach clench. When it went off, she fumbled with the phone, her hand shaking as she silenced it without looking at the screen. She didn't answer it. The timing of the calls was wrong, too. They always came late at night, after I was already in bed, and she would always take them in the other room. A new normal I had failed to notice until now. I told myself I was being paranoid. The stress of the baby, the financial pressures, it was all getting to me. I had to trust her. But the gnawing suspicion was a living thing, a shadow that clung to my every move. I tried to go to bed, to just forget the day, but I couldn't. I couldn't get her half-smile out of my mind. The rhythmic beat of my suspicion. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. I got up, my heart pounding, and went to the bathroom to get a glass of water. As I reached for the light switch, I saw it. A small, crumpled piece of paper on the floor next to the hamper. She must have dropped it when she was getting changed. I unfolded it, my hands shaking. It was a receipt for a private investigator, and it was dated 2 weeks ago. The crumpled receipt felt like a live wire in my hand. A private investigator. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Who was she investigating? And why? I began my own investigation, a desperate, clumsy attempt to find the truth. I checked our phone records. Her calls to an unknown number were frequent, long, and always late at night. The texts were deleted, but the number was there, a ghost in the machine. I wrote it down, my hand shaking. My next step was social media. I went through her accounts, looking for anything, any clue I might have missed. I found nothing on the surface. Her pages were a perfect, polished reflection of our happy life. But I noticed she had unfriended a few of her old college friends. People I knew she was close to. Why? It didn't make sense. I sent a message to one of them, a mutual friend I had always liked. I kept it casual, a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" Her response was short and formal, a stark contrast to our usual easy banter. Something was wrong. I tried to confront Vera again. I held the receipt in my hand, my voice calm but my heart hammering in my chest. "I found this," I said, holding it out to her. "What's this about?" She didn't even look at it. "It's nothing," she said, her voice flat. "It's for a client, a personal matter." But the company on the receipt wasn't a law firm. It was a private investigation agency. I knew it. I tried to press her, but she turned away, her body language a solid wall of refusal. "Can we just drop this?" she said. "I'm tired of you acting like this. You're being paranoid." The word hit me like a physical blow. Paranoid. Was I? Was I losing my mind? The world I knew was shifting, blurring around the edges. I questioned every memory, every conversation. I looked at her, the woman I had built my life with, and saw a stranger. Her face was a mask, her eyes a blank void. The woman I knew, the one who laughed and danced and cried with me, was gone. And in her place was this person, this stranger with secrets and lies. The investigation became an obsession. I was a detective in my own life, a man hunting for a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to find. I started to follow her. It was pathetic, I knew, but I couldn't stop myself. I saw her meet with a man in a cafe, a man I didn't recognize. They sat at a corner table, their heads close, their conversation hushed and intense. I watched, my heart a lead weight in my chest, as he handed her a small, white envelope. My breath caught in my throat. I had to know what was in that envelope. I had to know. I returned home, my mind a storm of fear and rage. I waited for her to go to sleep, then I began my search. I went through her purse, her coat, her things, my hands shaking with a mix of shame and desperation. And then I found it, tucked away in a small side pocket of her laptop bag, a sealed manila envelope. I pulled it out, my fingers fumbling with the clasp. I ripped it open, the sound a tear in the silence. Inside was a single document, a medical record, a paternity test. My blood ran cold as I read the results. There was only one word that mattered, a word that screamed from the page. Excluded. I walked into the bedroom, the paternity test clutched in my hand like a weapon. Vera was sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone, the soft light of the screen illuminating her face. She looked up, and her eyes went wide when she saw me. The casual facade she had maintained for weeks cracked, revealing the fear underneath. "What's that?" she asked, her voice a shaky whisper. I didn't answer. I just held out the envelope, the single piece of paper inside a thunderclap in the silent room. She flinched, her hands flying to her mouth, and I knew. The half-smile in the clinic. The cryptic texts. The changed ringtone. It all made sense now. "Who is he, Vera?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm, the quiet before a storm. "Who is the father?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face, a silent plea for mercy I couldn't grant. "I can explain," she sobbed. "Then explain." I roared, the dam breaking. "Explain to me how you could lie to me for 9 months. Explain to me how you could let me get excited about this baby, let me build a nursery, let me plan a future with a child that isn't even mine." She recoiled, her body shaking with sobs. "It was a mistake," she cried. "A terrible, stupid mistake." My mind flashed back to a moment months ago. Vera had come home late, her face pale, her hands trembling. I had asked her if she was okay, and she had blamed it on a stressful day at work. Now I saw it for what it was, the start of the lie, the beginning of the end. "Who is he?" I repeated, my voice raw with a pain so deep it was physical. "Is it someone I know?" She closed her eyes, and a single name slipped from her lips, a name that made my world crumble into dust. "Mark," she whispered. "Mark from the office." My head reeled. Mark. My friend. The man I had shared a beer with just last week. The man who had congratulated me on the pregnancy, had shaken my hand and wished me luck. I remembered his strange, knowing look that day, a look I had dismissed as friendly camaraderie. "Why?" I asked, the word barely a whisper. "Why, Vera?" She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. "I don't know," she said, her voice a broken thing. "I was lonely. You were always at work, and I was so alone." The words were a dagger to my heart. Lonely. I had worked so hard to provide for us, to build a future for our family. And now, in a single devastating moment, I realized it was all for nothing. The promises, the plans, the dreams, all of them were built on a foundation of lies. My mind went back to the doctor's words. "The due date you were given seems to be off. By about 3 weeks. The date of conception." It lined up with the single weekend I was out of town for a conference. The weekend she had been lonely. I had been so blind. I turned and walked away, the room spinning around me. The thought of this child, this innocent life, tied to a lie, was more than I could bear. My dream of a family was a fantasy. A cruel joke. I walked to the door, my hand on the knob. I had to leave. I couldn't stay here, not with her, not with this betrayal hanging over us like a shroud. I had to get out. But as I opened the door, she said something that stopped me dead in my tracks. "Wait," she screamed, her voice hoarse. "There's more." I turned back, my heart a frozen block of ice in my chest. What could possibly be worse than this? I asked, my voice devoid of all emotion. She looked at me, a flicker of something new in her eyes. It wasn't remorse. It was fear. A different kind of fear. "The doctor," she said, her voice barely audible. She wasn't a doctor. My blood ran cold. "She was my cousin," Vera continued, her voice breaking. "And she was supposed to fix the report. She was supposed to change the due date, so you would never find out. But she messed up. She told you the wrong date, and now he's threatening to tell everyone. He's threatening to ruin us. He's threatening to take the baby away from me." After her confession, the world went silent. I just stood there, staring at her, at the woman who had been my everything. The one who had not only betrayed me, but had planned to keep a secret so monumental for the rest of our lives. My mind reeled, a frantic search for some sort of answer, some sense to it all. But there was none. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just turned and walked out. I got in my car and drove, the city lights a blur of tears and rage. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not to her. Not to that house. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, phone calls, and hushed conversations with my family. I moved into my brother's spare room, a stranger in my own life. The nursery I had so carefully painted was empty, a ghost of a future that would never be. The baby's room was packed up, the tiny clothes, the colorful toys, all of it a painful reminder of a dream that was never real. Looking back, I realize how blind I was. I had put so much faith in my wife, in our relationship, that I couldn't see the signs. The subtle changes in her behavior, the hushed phone calls, the private investigator's receipt. All of it had been right in front of me, but I had refused to see it. I lost a lot that day. I lost my wife, my best friend, and the future I had planned. But in a strange way, I also gained something. I gained a new perspective. I learned that trust, once broken, can't be fixed. And I learned a difficult lesson about the secrets people keep and the lengths they'll go to protect them. I have a lot of questions. For myself, for her, and for all of you. Questions I don't have the answers to. I can't help but wonder if I could have done something differently. If there was a way to have avoided all this pain. If you heard that at an ultrasound, what would you do first? Confront, investigate, or leave? Do you think I overreacted, or was I right to trust my gut? If you were the doctor, how should they have handled it differently? The silence after the storm is the loudest sound of all.